Is MrBeast a true altruist, or just another figure like Sam Bankman-Fried, using charity for PR?
I wanted to get rich not because I like money, but because I wanted to give that money to charity.
Can a YouTuber who profits from others' misery really be a hero? Is philanthropy the right way to solve humanity's problems? I'm David Cott and welcome to David the Anarchist. In this video essay I will critique MrBeast's content and philanthropy, explain why charity is a flawed capitalist concept, and offer an alternative, all from a critical anarchist perspective, meaning one against all forms of hierarchy. Let's get started. There have been a ton of new serious allegations against MrBeast, but some old ones are just resurfacing now that he is getting cancelled. I don't want to focus my video on the drama, so I will just mention the allegations without further explanation, and I will leave links in the description to several videos and articles that talk about the drama in depth. The allegations include his awareness of sexual misconduct by a close associate, rigging game show outcomes, using COVID relief loans when his company didn't need them, and participating in crypto/NFT pump and dump schemes. He is also accused of promoting unhealthy products while advertising them as healthy, greenwashing, and running illegal lotteries that encourage gambling behaviors among his largely underage audience. Additionally, there are multiple independent claims of a toxic work culture at his company, where employees reportedly face bullying, high stress, and a fear of speaking out due to the risk of being fired. He also promoted a company town, or more accurately a neighborhood, to provide workers with housing, which might seem very generous at first glance, but is actually a very old abusive capitalist tactic that makes the power imbalance between employer and employee much worse than it normally is. Further accusations against MrBeast involve safety negligence during the filming of his game shows, leading to injuries in the Amazon's Beast games that are being filmed in Las Vegas. All these allegations, many of which seem undeniable at this point given the evidence, confirm that MrBeast's generosity only serves to create the image that he is a good person, when in fact he is not. How he treats his workers reveals the true nature of this man, and I think it should have been a big enough red flag that he has done so many videos, including his most recent one, with a well-known scammer like Logan Paul. This is a reminder that big YouTubers and streamers are like a mafia, protecting each other's backs because they benefit from collaborations, attitudes that help explain why Hollywood remained silent for so many years about a sexual predator like Harvey Weinstein. These power dynamics will always corrupt. To start critiquing MrBeast's philanthropy, let's begin with how it works. MrBeast wants to make the audience believe that they are helping fund charitable causes by subscribing to his channel and viewing his videos all the way through.
From now until the end of the year, every single time someone subscribes, I will give away 10 cents. By literally hitting that subscribe button, you are taking 10 cents out of my pocket and giving it to people like we had in the video.
Thus, he appeals to the viewer to give him watch time, subscribe, and maybe buy some of his products or those of sponsors. And with very little sacrifice, if any, they will be contributing to making the world better. Viewers donate their attention, engagement, and data, instead of making a regular monetary donation. And in exchange, advertisers will pay a lot of money to MrBeast to fund new charity works. It's a three-way win-win-win situation, right? At least, that's what MrBeast wants you to believe. With the rapid pacing, uplifting music, high energy, and emotions in MrBeast videos, they are made to be feel-good videos. By watching something good being done, viewers feel like they are participating in the good deed, all while they are entertained. This encourages a self-sustained economic model where more views lead to more spectacular philanthropic actions, and, more importantly, more fame and revenue for MrBeast. So, what's wrong with MrBeast's approach to philanthropy? Well, so many things are wrong that it's difficult to know where to start. But let's begin with some points that don't require a deep discussion and don't even require an anarchist perspective. What I think is an obvious one is that MrBeast doesn't do charity on camera. If he knows that a video will make him more money than he is giving away, that is not charity. That is called investing. Charity works, donations, and prizes in game shows are just operational costs for his product. Real charity, and I'm not even going to say true altruism, implies that you don't benefit economically from helping others. MrBeast practices philanthrocapitalism, meaning he takes a market-based approach and applies practices from business corporations to charitable work, treating it as a regular business with investments that must yield a return. MrBeast's charity content, and even some of his donations and game shows, are the spectacle of charity, or poverty porn, meaning he films people suffering in a low point in their lives to trigger empathy. This has started a pretty nasty trend on YouTube and TikTok among wannabe MrBeasts, who record themselves giving money to people in need on the streets, usually without consent. Can these people understand that receivers of charity are also human beings and don't deserve to lose their dignity like that, or that maybe they don't want to appear on camera at a low point in their lives? You could also accuse MrBeast of inspiration porn, which means portraying disabled people as objects for pity and inspiration for able-bodied people. And don't even get me started on his videos in Africa, where he portrays himself as a white savior. In my country, Spain, we have a YouTuber called Zaza El Italiano who also engages in poverty porn. He tried different types of formats unsuccessfully, and when he started filming his adventures in marginalized and violent neighborhoods, he got famous and started making good money. He is a parasite that lives off other people's misery and the unequal world we live in, just like MrBeast does. And that is just disgusting. Please don't watch this type of content or you are part of the problem too. There is also the question of whether charity is real when it is not anonymous. As the Andalusi Jewish scholar Maimonides said with his classification of 8 levels of giving, the purest form of giving implies that neither the donor nor the recipient knows each other. MrBeast's acts of giving depend on attention, as he wouldn't be rich without all the views he gets. The mode of giving must be entertaining and ostentatious as well. MrBeast sends the message that philanthropy should be fun, which subconsciously implies that maybe you should avoid charitable work that sounds boring, no matter how much good it can do. MrBeast's philanthropic actions are conditioned by the ability to turn them into great content, so he will always prioritize entertainment over other more meaningful charitable actions that might not be as funny or easy to portray on video. Related to this point is that a thing that differentiates MrBeast's videos from traditional fundraising events endorsed by celebrities is that the latter usually have a divide between entertaining sections and serious ones to raise awareness about the cause they are raising money for. In MrBeast's case, the charity is the entertainment, and there is no serious section. But I will discuss this point about not raising awareness later. Another problem with how MrBeast's philanthropy works is that only certain types of beneficiaries will be profiled to make algorithm and advertiser-friendly content. Drug addicts, sex workers, ex-convicts, and other stigmatized groups will likely be perceived as less deserving of charity, so they will be excluded from any video by MrBeast. Then there is the problem of the contradictory message behind MrBeast's videos. The executive director of Beast Philanthropy, Darren Margolius, claims this.
So if we can inspire tens of millions of kids that grow up into adults that just think a little bit differently, they give a little bit more money to charity rather than spending it on a very expensive pair of shoes or a sports car or, an even bigger house.
This is difficult to believe, given how MrBeast's content promotes a positive image of spectacularly wasteful consumption and luxury. What kind of values do MrBeast's videos, with so much focus on money, teach to kids? You might be raising future right-wing crypto bros who believe that libertarian means being an ultra-capitalist dickhead, instead of anarchist, as that was the original meaning of the word. Sure, some kids might take away that giving is important, but I think I can confidently say that most kids will focus on the flashy things, like the piles of physical cash they show. MrBeast's videos reinforce the idea that consumerism and wealth are necessary for personal fulfillment. So they teach kids to be very materialistic and to value a person's worth according to how much money they have or make. Sure, MrBeast hasn't invented this. It is a characteristic of capitalist societies. But he decided to profit from it and encourage money-seeking attitudes in minors. How do you think most kids watching MrBeast videos will feel when they realize they are poor and can have a luxurious life like the one displayed in MrBeast videos? They will grow frustrated and insecure. They will feel unhappy, just as it happens when young girls look at how great Instagram models with a ton of Photoshop, makeup, and money look. They might blame their economic situation and lack of good future prospects on their parents, or more likely vulnerable minorities like immigrants, instead of directing their frustration towards the elites of capitalism. MrBeast profits from selling the American dream, the idea that everyone can make it, which implies denying that since the triumph of neoliberalism in the 80s and the near destruction of unions, wages have stagnated and inequality has risen massively. This is the lie that makes working class people aspire to be rich, or at least be a poorly defined middle class, or to believe that they actually are middle class, even though they might have trouble making ends meet. MrBeast embodies the capitalist imaginary of a hard-working, self-made man, perfect to justify the current status quo. If you are not succeeding, it must be your fault, and you probably are lazy, uncreative, and dumb. I can already picture someone in the comment section saying, "But look at how much good MrBeast has done. What have you done, huh?" If we weren't living in a capitalist society, by definition an unequal society, maybe we wouldn't need charity from the likes of MrBeast. A good act doesn't make you a good person. It doesn't matter how much money people like Bill Gates or George Soros donate, because that won't change the fact that they became rich in the first place by doing all kinds of nasty and often illegal things that any good person will never do. They continue to speculate in the markets and exploit other people's work, while they donate money to whitewash their image and consciousness. And also to get tax deductions, because the elites dictate the rules of what's legal and what's not. It doesn't matter how much money Jeff Bezos donates to causes like homelessness, if he is at the same time doing everything in his power to prevent Amazon workers from unionizing. And he still does things that lead to people becoming homeless. Most millionaires believe these two things about themselves: that they work smarter and or harder than anyone else, instead of acknowledging that they wouldn't be where they are without other people doing most of the work for them, and that they succeeded because they are not afraid of breaking the rules. They think the rules don't apply to them. A good example of this is the safety rules or lottery legislation that MrBeast's company consciously ignores. MrBeast acts as if his success depended on him instead of the hundreds of workers he employs or the people he has been doing videos with since day one. But sure, we can ignore how he treats his employees because he's giving so much money and saving kids in poor African countries who need a white savior. Or maybe we should think that if he can even treat his workers properly, he is not sincere and his image of a humble philanthropist is a facade. Millions of people around the world, especially poor people, do good things every day and help other people without publicizing it or expecting something in return. Yet, brainwashed fans defend a multimillionaire who has made so much money with this poverty porn and who films every supposedly good action he does to make even more money and get more famous. A big issue I have with MrBeast's videos is that they are portrayed as apolitical. However, when people claim to be apolitical, they just mean that they don't challenge the status quo. The state is absent in his videos, and thus they present governments as irrelevant in making the world better. This wouldn't be a problem from an anarchist perspective if it weren't for the fact that he presents himself as a savior of people in need, implying that private initiatives by good-natured wealthy individuals can fix or alleviate problems created by capitalism, instead of self-managed communities acting in solidarity. It sends the message that the world will be better if there were simply more rich people like MrBeast. Instead of questioning why inequality exists and how these people got rich in the first place, which always comes down to exploitation and more often than not, illegal practices. So the market will solve the injustices and individual actions will solve systemic problems. MrBeast basically promotes all the right-wing ideas associated with the propertarians, wrongfully known as libertarians in the US. In fact, this is evident from his video I Built 100 Wells in Africa.
You would think that having an effect of this magnitude would require the resources and funding of a large government, but that's not true. Solving this problem is possible, and something humanity should all be putting effort in to fix.
In his videos about curing blindness and deafness, he frames these issues as medical problems, hiding the fact that these were easy medical interventions that poor people shouldn't even be concerned about if there were a universal healthcare system in the US. He promoted an initiative like Team Seas that has removed 17,040 tons of plastic from the seas, as if that were a viable and great solution for the plastic pollution issue, when between 8 and 12 million tons of plastic end up in the seas every year. He won't talk about the causes of problems like plastic pollution or poverty because that is not fun, it will alienate millions of viewers, and sponsors wouldn't like it either because it will point fingers at them. As MrBeast wants to have the widest audience possible, that means he actively avoids anything that could be divisive among his audience. Philanthropy expressed the idea that social issues and inequality can be solved without fighting the powerful. Too many people fight the symptoms of the negative effects of capitalism, like ecological problems or poverty, while ignoring their causes. This means that the struggle will never end. It is like a doctor alleviating the symptoms of a disease instead of curing the disease. And that only prolongs the agony and creates more injustices, as people could avoid having miserable lives in the present and future if capitalism were abolished. If you undermine the urge for structural change and avoid raising awareness about the core issues that provoke these problems in the first place, guess what? You are part of the problem. In this video, I'm using MrBeast as a way to talk about charity as a whole and to try to convince you why charity is bad. As Professor Iain Kapoor argues, charity helps decaffeinate capitalism. It masks corporate ills and tempers people's resentment and desire for reform and even revolution that arise from the increasing inequalities the world has experienced since the 80s with the triumph of neoliberalism. Charity allows capitalism to postpone its crisis. It's a patch for an exploitative economic system. That means that capitalism is not questioned but supported by philanthropy. Professor Iain Kapoor studied celebrity humanitarianism, and I'm going to quote him because what he says perfectly depicts what MrBeast does with his brand and content. Quote, "Charity work is deeply tainted and ideological. Its altruistic pretensions are belied by several notable accompaniments. Its tendency to promote both the celebrity's brand and the image of the caring Western nation, its entrenchment in a marketing and promotion machine that willy-nilly helps advance corporate capitalism, as well as the very poverty it purports to remedy. Its support to a post-democratic, liberal political system that is outwardly populist, yet, for all intents and purposes, conducted by unaccountable elites. And its use and abuse of the Third World, making Africa in particular a background for First World hero worship and a dumping ground for humanitarian ideals and fantasies." End quote. In his 1891 essay, The Soul of Man Under Socialism, Irish artist and anarchist Oscar Wilde made a very good critique of charity. I'm going to make a long quotation because it presents really well some of the arguments of anarchists against philanthropy, starting with this criticism against altruistic people. Quote, "With admirable though misdirected intentions, they very seriously and very sentimentally set themselves to the task of remedying the evils that they see. But their remedies do not cure the disease. They merely prolong it. Indeed, their remedies are part of the disease. The proper aim is to try and reconstruct society on such a basis that poverty will be impossible. And the altruistic virtues have really prevented the carrying out of this aim. Just as the worst slave owners were those who were kind to their slaves, and so prevented the horror of the system being realized by those who suffered from it, and understood by those who contemplated it. Such charity degrades and demoralizes. Charity creates a multitude of sins. There is also this to be said. It is immoral to use private property in order to alleviate the horrible evils that result from the institution of private property. It is both immoral and unfair. Under socialism, all this will, of course, be altered. There will be no people living in fatty dens and fatty drugs, and bringing up unhealthy, hunger-pinched children in the midst of impossible and absolutely repulsive surroundings. We're often told that the poor are grateful for charity. Some of them are, no doubt. But the best amongst the poor are never grateful. They are ungrateful, discontented, disobedient, and rebellious. They are quite right to be so. Charity they feel to be a ridiculously inadequate mode of partial restitution, or a sentimental dole, usually accompanied by some impertinent attempt on the part of the sentimentalist to tyrannize over their private lives. Why should they be grateful for the crumbs that fall from the rich man's table? They should be seated at the board and are beginning to know it. End quote. This brings me to my last major criticism against MrBeast's philanthropy and charity as a whole, and that is the power imbalance between the donor and recipient, and the effect of disempowerment that charity has. As anarchist thinker Peter Kropotkin said in his work Mutual Aid, charity, quote, bears a character of inspiration from above and, accordingly, implies a certain superiority of the giver upon the receiver, end quote. Forgetting the fact that many times when MrBeast gives away money, it goes to rich friends and influencers, family members and workers and their acquaintances, donations are given to people by surprise. This means that recipients of donations have no agency, as they cannot express what they need. In philanthropy, elites decide, according to their own agendas, what causes matter, how much to spend on them, and in what manner. Acts of giving are not channeled by collective decision-making, but by a rich guy presented as a paternalistic, enlightened hero. As Professor Rhodri Davies analyzed in his paper, recipients are passive actors whose role is to provide MrBeast with the opportunity to make generous acts on camera to please the viewers and make them feel part of it, and to evoke an emotional response from the recipient showing gratitude. People who consent to appear in his videos don't really have a say in how they will be portrayed in the final edit of the video, so this again shows the perverse power dynamic. We don't even know if MrBeast's team gets informed consent from the recipients and if they can say that they don't want to appear in the video after receiving the donation. Even in his game shows, the great power imbalances are displayed and legitimized, with people competing fiercely for scarce resources while MrBeast watches them fight for peanuts. A competitor in the Beast games put this very graphically when she told vocal critic of MrBeast, Rosanna Pansino, this.
The game that had to do with the briefcase, it felt literally like Hunger Games. While MrBeast is standing on his podium, looking down, watching all of us peasants fight for a chance at 5 million.
In one video from 2019, MrBeast essentially forced a black man who had won $1 million in a previous video to spend that money within 24 hours to create an entertaining video. Recently, that man from the channel Mantonis has spoken about how he wishes he had had more time to think about how to spend that money wisely, instead of buying tens of electronic devices because that is very visual, funny, and entertaining for a video. This recipient of a giveaway didn't have a choice in what time frame he could have spent the $1 million he had won. And even though in his video he doesn't want to criticize MrBeast, it is evident that because of the power dynamics involving a rich donor and a poor recipient, he felt like he didn't have a say in the matter. The fact that he doesn't want to criticize MrBeast and still feels grateful and like he shouldn't bother an important and rich man like MrBeast with his problems, exemplifies very well how power imbalances corrupt relationships and degrade people. Philanthropy is an expression of power, and not the same as solidarity and mutual aid. On the other hand, MrBeast's approach to philanthropy promotes slacktivism, meaning the practice of supporting social causes by online means with very little effort or commitment. By viewing a philanthropic video, viewers feel better about themselves as if they had participated in doing their bit to help, while in reality, they have done basically nothing, because one viewer doesn't contribute even a cent in ad revenue on YouTube. His videos encourage a very passive attitude in relation to one's civic contributions and lure potential activists away from actually doing something meaningful. MrBeast's model of philanthropy is non-replicable, since there is only so much attention to turn into charitable actions. MrBeast's videos only distract people and atrophy their capacity to think and act to make the world a better place. Celebrities like MrBeast save the world for us, and we feel consoled that at least someone is doing something about poverty, the environment, or whatever cause MrBeast claims to tackle. However, from an anarchist perspective, this represents a delegation of the responsibility of fighting social injustices to rich people. It's the same thing we do under a parliamentary democracy, where we delegate our political power to politicians who can do whatever they want and break all their promises in their 4 years in power, since they don't have a recallable mandate. Anarchists are against the delegation of power, and instead encourage direct action, which means doing whatever you think needs to be achieved by your own means, without expecting someone else who claims to represent you to do it for you. So, we have seen that charity is bad, because it is a top-down approach, it reinforces hierarchies and legitimizes inequalities, it distracts people from the causes behind the problems philanthropy claims to want to solve, it depoliticizes people from the urge for revolution, and it makes more people suffer because the system doesn't change. Philanthropy is based on whatever a wealthy person wants instead of the actual needs of the people. But what is the anarchist alternative to charity? Should we just not do anything? Of course not. Instead of charity, we embrace solidarity, which we can define as the voluntary cooperation of people in a non-hierarchical way to empower themselves and achieve their common goal. A good example of the anarchist principles of direct action and solidarity in action is Food Not Bombs, a group of collectives that share vegetarian and vegan food for free. They have suffered multiple arrests since they started in the 80s because they directly challenge state power, capitalism, and urban gentrification. They reject charity in favor of solidarity, as do all anarchists, because Food Not Bombs doesn't have a hierarchical structure. Homeless and former homeless people are empowered and participate in their activities, and the group discusses their decisions collectively. Food Not Bombs repoliticizes social issues like homelessness and lack of access to food. They express that these situations are not the result of just bad luck or individual failings, but of systemic political and economic issues, in contrast to the silence of non-profits backed and financed by corporations and governments. MrBeast could have taken the lead in creating an empowering, self-managed, bottom-up organization without hierarchies. But that would imply that he actually cares about people. And he wouldn't have gotten so famous and rich if it wasn't because he followed and exploited perfectly the rules of capitalism. His philanthropic actions do not empower communities to solve their own problems. Instead, they reinforce the dependence of poor people and make them wait passively for a benevolent and paternalistic wealthy man to come up and give them money. MrBeast doesn't even run his company like a cooperative. It is a normal capitalist company, so he appropriates the surplus value of his workers. Why should I admire MrBeast? A man who reproduces hierarchies, power dynamics, economic inequality, and many other bad things, instead of admiring the anonymous, working-class activists who help other people. MrBeast If you were an anonymous capitalist or even a famous one who didn't try to appear like a humble, good-natured guy who only wants to help people, then you wouldn't receive so much criticism. But you deserve all the shit that is coming to you for creating that fake image of yourself, that brand of an empty, narcissistic man who will do anything for attention. You cannot be a good man while you are treating your workers poorly, when you don't take seriously the safety of contestants, when you promote gambling behavior, unhealthy food, and the aspiration to money and fame to kids, when you participate in crypto market manipulation, when you collaborate with scammers like Logan Paul or a fascist like Elon Musk, and you can be a good person when you exploit people's misery for profit. It is that simple. The existence of someone like MrBeast is just a symptom of the broken capitalist system we live in and the attention economy that has gained importance with YouTube and other social media platforms. He represents the propaganda of capitalism and embodies all the reasons why charity is not a good approach to solving the problems of humanity. If I have changed your view on philanthropy, please let me know in the comment section. And if you want more video essays commenting on issues with an anarchist perspective, please let me know and subscribe to this new channel. I don't think I will have it released yet when I publish this video, but on my other YouTube channel about the history of Spain, called New History of Spain, I will upload a video on the Barcelona rent strike of 1931 that the anarcho-syndicalist CNT organized. So I will put the link in the description when I have it ready and invite you to watch it. Thank you for your time and see you soon!